Greetings. This is another recorded episode about Thomas Aquinas, and I wanted to talk about a nickname that Thomas Aquinas had. He was a very large person, and many people called him a dumb ox. When he was in his degrees at school doing his doctorate, someone said, "That dumb ox, will he ever amount to anything?" Well, the reason they called him that is he was doing his doctorate degree in another language, and they all thought that Thomas Aquinas was dumb. But one of the professors said, "That person you call dumb ox, his voice someday will be heard throughout the world." And it was. He's a very famous philosopher. So now I wanted to go on to St. Augustine. And it's interesting about St. Augustine because he lived a life of sin and partying. He was baptized and became a priest. However, he was about 33 years of age. The reason he didn't get baptized earlier is because he enjoyed the company of women so much, so he was not converted to the church. Later in life, he said his conscience always bothered him because of his acts with women. So he, as a Catholic priest, he practiced poverty, supported the poor, and he and Thomas Aquinas are very important philosophers that we study in the medieval period. I think of a joke because one thing that was very important to St. Augustine was the idea of original sin. His mother was a devout church member. In fact, she became St. Monica in the Catholic Church. But his father was a pagan and a very hot-tempered atheist. So that would have been some conversation around the dinner table. Augustine is known not only for this concept of original sin that we were all born into, but he talked of the city of man and of the city of God. The city of man, the human elements of life, and it's different from the city of God where God resides. And of course our goal is to shoot for higher goals, to be with God. He criticized the Roman Empire very much because he thought that they were too selfish and ambitious and materialistic, thought only of worldly things. But he became a very great leader in the Catholic Church. The joke is told, there's a picture of a snake that says, "If Eve doomed the human race for an apple, what would she do for a Klondike bar?" So the original sin idea of Adam and Eve and the city of God and the city of man, that would be the major concepts of St. Augustine. St. Augustine went through life trying to figure out whether or not he should convert into Christianity. In the meantime, he focused on his education, philosophy, and writings. Augustine noticed he was living a life of sin and wanted to help others also make a difference. But what made a difference in his life? He was inspired by Bishop Ambrose from Milan, and he ended up converting to the religion. I believe he had some vision where he saw a little girl, a child, and this made him want to convert. He did become a priest in 391 AD, and he became the Bishop of Hippo. That's not a hippopotamus, but a town in Africa, in 396 AD. His very famous work was entitled The Confessions, Confessions, and that helped shape society during that time period. I also think of the city of man and the city of God, and it reminds me of a little cartoon that I saw. A young boy goes into confession, and he says to the father, the father says to him, "Have you sinned, my child?" And the child said, "It's all on my blog site, Father." So he's confessing of his sins using his blog site. So